Let's wait for a few people to tune in, and we'll get started. G'day guys. Just waiting for a few other people to tune in, and then we can have a chat. G'day Carl. Go Saints, straight into it. Andrew's joining us. Thanks, mate. Let's wait for a few more people to tune in. Matty Marsh, the Emperor of Isle 29, has tuned in. I don't often get Matty Marsh to tune in, but it's an honour to be previewing in front of such a man. Wait for a few more people to tune in. Gives me time to plug the podcast with Matty Marsh there. He's watching. A bit of a delayed episode this week, guys, with the news of the lockdowns, and had to organise the studio, which we unfortunately can't go in and record for at least 6 weeks, which is really disappointing. But it is what it is. We got the job done yesterday, and the episode is now out. So if you haven't listened to it, have a listen to it. We do preview this week's game against Fremantle, but we also talk about last week's win against Carlton, which seems like an eternity ago, a whole week ago that we played Carlton on Thursday night. But we've got Freo on Saturday, 12:35, nice and early. We're in the Noosa hub, training in the wet. If you guys saw the photos, apparently it was pissing down today in Noosa, and the boys had some nice wet weather training. I'm thinking looking at the forecast, the weather's supposed to be a bit better on Saturday, so I'm assuming that we're still going to go in playing the way we want to play, playing that fast handball, uncontested style. No, thanks, Andrew. 200 stars there, very nice. Playing that uncontested style. I think it's going to be an interesting test if we go into this game and the weather, poses its own opposition in a way, because we've played under the roof, and the one game where we've played away at the G in the open elements, we struggled against Collingwood, which we all know. So this is going to be another test on its own that, even though it could be a dry day, it's a different ground, so there's something to get used to. But, the approach that the guys are saying is that it doesn't matter where we play, we're just going to give 100% and try and get the job done. And I love that approach. We mentioned in the podcast, but, a lot of these other teams going into hubs complaining, leaving players behind, not taking their full squad. There's a chance that we might actually need to extend this because, the lockdown is actually 6 weeks, and we're only away for, I think they've said 4 or 5 weeks. So I don't know how that's going to work, but we've taken our full squad, which is amazing. We've got a lot of players. We've got a lot of depth. We've got a lot of players to look at, to give a chance. Another week where Jack Bytel and Ryan Burns don't get a chance, but we'll talk about our ins and outs. Dan Hanbury obviously is really disappointing that he's had to come out, but when you've got a player like Zach Jones coming back in, it negates that negativity. In a way, it's two negatives kind of make a positive in that sense, and that Jones has had a good week and a half off since his injury, and Dan Hanbury's going to get a couple of weeks to rest. He's obviously up at Noosa with the boys, and I just love that the feeling around the club, the unity that we've got. It's something that we haven't had in a long time, and I think it's something that Richmond of 2017 they had, and that's why they climbed the ladder and won premierships the way they did so quickly, is because they all loved each other and they didn't take themselves too seriously. And I think we're getting along those lines where we're not always joking, we're serious, we want to be a competitive team, but where they look like mates, they look like they love having each other around. And I think we're one of the few clubs that probably are going to benefit a lot from being sent away and to deal with really unknown elements. Every day, seemingly, the AFL changes things, so we've become very flexible, and it seems like that's the way we play on field. We're quite flexible, so I'm really loving the approach that the boys are taking. In terms of this game, obviously I just mentioned Dan Hanbury's out, which is unfortunate, hamstring injury from last week. He's out for 3 weeks. Well, we do get Zach Jones back, and what Zach Jones brings that we lacked last week was probably that added constant pressure and that constant run and that constant link-up player. So, you look at the first half last week and you're thinking, well, Jake, that's bullshit. We dominated even without Zach Jones. But if you look at that third quarter, when players stopped running, and then you look at what Zach Jones did, a couple of weeks prior against the Dogs and even a bit against Richmond, he doesn't stop running. Everyone talks about Brad Hill's endurance, and yes, Brad Hill has amazing endurance, the best endurance in the competition. We all know that, it's well documented. But a lot of people don't talk about the workhorse, Zach Jones. He doesn't stop running. And I think having, we look at Brad Hill last week and he had, 7 disposals, very low for his high standards, the lowest he's had for us in his 7 or 8 games that he's played. But I think having Zach Jones there really does benefit him. It really brings him into the game, and he needs that connector. And we saw against the Bulldogs, against Richmond in particular, that those two connecting, that Butler goal, it was all them on the wing. So I think if they can be close to each other, around the footy, and they can link up, then it's going to make us a very hard team to beat against Fremantle. And that's what brings me to Fremantle. Our opponents for this weekend, they've only won 1 game for the season. They've obviously played 5. They're 1-4. They've only beaten Adelaide, who are probably the worst team in the competition. And I did watch that game carefully last week. Freo v Adelaide. Not a great spectacle, to say the least. But what I did mention in the podcast yesterday was that it doesn't matter that they only just beat Adelaide. We can't just say, well, they only beat Adelaide and we're going to smash them. They got the win, and that's all it takes. They got the win. They've got the 4 points. They think they can get on a roll. And what do they go and do? They bring in Nat Fyfe, one of the best midfielders in the competition, and they also bring in Blake Acres to debut against his old team. So there's 2 factors there. There's one that is, getting an old Saint to play against his old mates and to see if that mentally throws us off. I mean, Brad Hill's playing against his old team, so I don't think it really matters. But then they've also gone and potentially rushed their best player into this game, and that's why I think that they really think they're a chance. They really think they're a chance. They would not have rushed Nat Fyfe in if they thought this was a dead rubber and Saints are too good. They think they can get us, and then they want to have him primed the week after when they play West Coast. So it's going to be a massive test for us. I think Jack Steele should go straight to Nat Fyfe and give him a massive tackle in the first quarter. Make him realise that he's probably been brought in too early, just to show him that he's going to be in for a long day. And the way Steele handled Cripps last week, similar size player, they basically play the same game. They're big, they can go forward, take a mark and kick goals. If Steele can take down Cripps, Steele can take down a Nat Fyfe for being rushed back from injury. So I have no issues there. In terms of styles, I think we just go there and we play our game. I think we need to be confident. I think we need to link up. We need to play fast. Our forward line will test them. They've got a number of big players in the back half that are out. They've got Cox playing out. Nathan Wilson's very good. Luke Ryan is that Doherty type player. The kind of he gives them that rebound. So potentially Geary could play on him and negate him. But I feel like we need to go into this game confident. We don't need to go in too worried about the opposition. Obviously we need to, be careful because they can hurt you. And they've got some talented players there. They've got Walters who tends to kick, at least 4 or 5 goals on us every time. That's why I don't think Geary's going to play in our forward line, is because you've got players like Walters in their forward line that we need a Geary there. We need, Cal Wilkie to be on his game. We need Dougal Howard to be on their game. So I think it's really important that players like Geary play in their preferred position, and there's no room for throwing players around. Last week was an exception. I think this week we need to go in and we need to play our game, and it needs to be a 4-quarter game because we fell away in that second half last week. There's no doubt about it. We thought we were going to get a 10-goal win. There's no, we all thought, okay, this is going to be a nice Thursday night where we just dominate and win by 60 points against Carlton, and we can tell our Carlton fans for the rest of the week how shit their team is. But we win by 18 points, and that doesn't do us justice. That doesn't do our first half justice. We played very, very good football in that first half. It should have been a 50-plus point win, and it wasn't. We came off a 5-day break. Hanbury goes down in the second half. We finished the game with 3 on the bench. There are a couple of outside factors there that might have resulted in Carlton getting back into the game, but to hear Carlton fans come out and say, we played shit, but we only lost by 18 points, so clearly the Saints aren't that good. We played bad, and they played their best, and we only lost by 18. Geez, we're not far off. That's legitimately what they were saying, and that annoys me because they were nowhere near us, and 18 points, and it makes it look like a close game, and it really shouldn't have been. So I want us to go out. We've had 9 or whatever days off between Thursday and the Saturday, 9 days off, let's say, there's no excuse for us to not go out and play 4 quarters, kick 15 goals and win by 5+ goals. And that's what I said in the podcast. I said I want to win by over 6 goals, and that's still what I hold. I think we are, on paper, a 6-goal better team, and I think in terms of our method and the way we play, we're a 6-goal better team against most teams lately. So on current form, you'd have to be pretty confident, but we are St Kilda, and it's a massive 2 weeks for us. I know this is a Fremantle preview, but it is so important for us to win the next 2. Fremantle, Adelaide. We go in to round 8, 5-2. Probably easily top 3 at that point on the ladder. And, you'd want a percentage booster with the next 2. But, this week is almost as much of a test as the last couple have been against Richmond and Carlton. The next 2. Because we're playing a team that we should beat in Fremantle. And then we're playing another team that we should beat in Adelaide. And when we play Adelaide, it's going to be at Adelaide Oval, and I think fans are going to be allowed in. So, the Adelaide supporters are going to want blood. They're going to want to stop the run of St Kilda positivity. So, it's a massive 2 weeks. I'm going to stop it there. I think in terms of their midfield, Nat Fyfe, if you can negate Nat Fyfe, then I think that pretty much puts the ball in our court, and we can do the job there. Last year, Nat Fyfe had a phenomenal game against us, and so did Brad Hill, and they nearly beat us. So we've got Brad Hill now. We've taken one of their best players away from them, and if we stop their actual best player from giving them that outside ball, that's what Nat Fyfe does so well, is that when it's a congestion, he can get in there and he can get that handball out and open up the game. That's what Paddy Cripps does. We stopped that last week, and we saw what happened in the first half. If we do that again against Nat Fyfe, then I don't see why we can't take hold of this game early and get the job done. So this is probably the first game this season where I've gone into a preview and said, I expect us to win by 4+, 5+ goals. If we're on, there is no excuse. So I'm just going to go through some comments. Scroll back to the top. Let's go Saints. Hey Jake, says Andrew Parker. G'day mate. Carl says, what's up, man? Let's get pumped and hope for a good game. 100%, I agree with that. Go Saints, says Luke. Matty Marsh with, g'day, mate. I'm disappointed he didn't say yip, to be honest. Duncan says, pressure and more pressure this week. Saints, 100%. Just keep doing what we're doing. We've got the method that obviously stands up against top teams. Ignoring the Collingwood game, we've beaten Bulldogs, who have gone on a run lately and smashed North last week. And we've beaten Richmond, who then go and smash Melbourne. So every team that we've beaten, they've suddenly got on a run. So it's no coincidence that we're beating some good teams, even Carlton. So we've beaten Bulldogs, Richmond and Carlton. We've beaten an up-and-coming top 4 team in the Bulldogs. We've beaten 2 out of the last 3 premiers in Richmond, and we've beaten Carlton, who everyone thinks is a massive chance to do a Brisbane Lions and go from bottom cellar dwellers to a top 8 team in 2 years. So we've beaten who we've needed to, apart from North, but we're on a roll now. I think we need to ride this wave and keep it going. Daniel says, do you think Butler will win the Norm Smith? Don't even question if we can win the premiership. Obviously, that's foregone conclusion. Butler to kick 6 and have 35, roaming in the midfield for 25% of the game, and easy Norm Smith. Good question there, Dan. Luke says, looks like Akers will debut against us. Hopefully he'll outplay him. It's going to be very interesting to see how different Blake Akers plays. His opposition now, and we all thought, and I was one of his biggest fans, and thought he had some of the biggest potential out of all of our youngsters, and to see him go away against his will, he wanted to stay, but we needed to get the Brad Hill deal done, and Blake Akers had to be part of that to make it happen. Amazing that he obviously wanted, let it happen, and he's now back at home in WA, and hopefully he can play some good footy, but not against us, hopefully on the weekend. Shane says we should smash them, should be a very quick podcast. I'd love to just rock up to a podcast on a Tuesday night, chat to Marshy and Joyce and just say, well, another win, boys. I just want to get it done. I don't want to have to rant about a shit performance and how we should have done this and we should have done that. I want us to just go and get the job done and have an easy chat. Luke says, we are feeling like before the Collingwood game, just want a different result. Free and Crows. Not sure what that means. Go Saints, says Denise. Meg says, link for podcast, please, Jake. Anyone who wants to listen to the podcast, just go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, type in Saints TV Podcast, episode 17, Blue Baggers, and there you go, you have it. So, and there's also a post from yesterday if you want to go on the Facebook page, and they've got the links there. So, Meg, that'll answer your question, hopefully. Just go there and you'll find it pretty easily. Bradley's even responded to you. Search Saints TV on Spotify. Should be dry on Saturday, hopefully. Oh, thanks for all the stars, by the way. Really nice of everyone to be doing that. Michael says, Zach Jones clearly right to go after a hamstring setback. Another huge game when we need our stars playing. Would have loved to see Burns get his debut, though. Hope there is another scratch match so his form continues. 100%. If his form continues and we get, another solid win, it's going to be hard to break into the team, but that's all he can do, is he can play the scratch matches, train well, perform well, and, he puts him in the conversation. There's not much else that you could ask from a youngster, so the fact that he's already doing both those things is great for, 18, 19-year-old. Loving your comments, says Elaine. Thanks very much. Glad some people don't think I'm an idiot talking about footy. By telling Burns next week, maybe against a weak Crows team. It'll be a weak Crows team, but a Crows team that, is confident because we haven't beaten them since 2011 or something like that. So, even if it's a shitty Crows team, they're going to be confident against the Saints team, especially at home in front of their own crowd. If we win this week, can't remember the last time we won 3 in a row. That's a very good point, Tim. 3 in a row. I'm tipping it would have been 2017. I think we smashed the Hawks, if I remember, in Launceston. We beat GWS, and then I think we might have beaten Carlton or something after that, or something like that. We won 3 or 4 in a row in 2017, and that's when we thought, here we go, under Richo, and then we didn't make finals. But I think that would have been the last time we won 3 in a row. Elaine says, our players have a great attitude this season. The feeling and unity is awesome. Saw them having a hit of tennis up in Noosa. Yeah, I saw that as well. They're clearly a bunch of mates, and it'll be interesting to see in the second and third week how they're all coping with each other, because first couple of days it's always easy being with your mates, and I've done it, traveling with your mates, it's great. A week in, and then you're like, all right, I just need my own time for now, but we'll see how they go. Lucas says, love how Rats has been able to keep the group playing at a high level, and also, I can't even talk, has also been able to name virtually the same side every week to help the players gel better with each other quicker. And even, the fact that they're playing together and they've gelled so well is great, but the fact that they've done it in 6 games, and plus a little preseason that's been kind of uninterrupted, that's phenomenal. For a team, we're such a new team. For Brett Ratton to come in as a new coach and identify strengths and weaknesses and quickly mould our game plan to suit that and to utilise those strengths, it's, credit to him and credit to the coaching staff, but also to the players for listening and believing in what he's saying and executing it. That's the next part. You can have a great coach, but if the message isn't getting through to the players, it's not going to work. And Richard could well have been a great coach. We've seen it. But clearly his message wasn't getting through. So it's just a matter of the communication. And Brett Ratton's got that working big time. Aaron Gox is saying, people expecting full 4-quarter domination. It would be lovely, but simply doesn't happen in modern game. Good point. Even Crows, who are woeful, had a little run last week. That's a very good point. We're not going to always have it our way, but what I liked is that even though Carlton dominated last week for, say, the third term, I think they only really took a goal max off our margin, so we didn't let them get a run on the scoreboard. It's great if they're clearly, the gameplay suiting our opposition, but if they're not getting the score, then it doesn't matter, because we are learning to absorb that pressure, and then once they die down, we hit them again, and then we finish the game off. And we did that a little bit last week. They came hard, they kicked a couple of goals, got a run on, but then we stabilised. Billings kicks a goal, Dean Kent kicks a goal, Membry kicks a goal, we get out to a 35-point lead again. So that's a sign of maturity, and I'm enjoying that side of our game. Does Geary stay as a tagging forward, or does he rotate more defence? I think he stays as he rotates more in defence, but I think it's dependent on how the game's going. Who's hurting us more, Walters or Ryan and Wilson? It depends. If they're hurting us, he goes there. If they're not, probably just keep him on Walters. Steele has to be a smoky for All-Australian. Very good call. He could definitely be in the selected squad. Nicholas says, Carlton have been really good in second half since Teague took over. Shocking in the first quarter. Not much better in the second. Fife might play forward. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I think that would work in our favour, to be honest, because that means we'll probably get more first use of the ball in the midfield, and that in turn means that they don't get it inside 50 to even utilise someone as good as Nat Fife. Garen says, spot on, should be 2 easy wins, but that's the games we have dropped in recent times. Saints by 35. Like the way you're thinking, Dan. Go Saints. Wilkie, statistically the best one-on-one player in the comp at the moment. Should he go to Walters or will he... Nah, Walters is mobile. I don't know how mobile Wilkie is. He might, be one of those roaming players, but if Geary plays on Walters, then I wouldn't be too worried, but that's the beauty of our backline, and there was a lot of articles and a lot of talk about it in the week, is that we're very versatile. Players switch around. Caulfield might go to him. Wilkie might go to him. Ben Long you might find on him. So it depends on what we're doing with the footing, who's pushing up the ground, who needs to come back and cover that player. It's a really flexible and mobile backline, and that gives us a lot of strength. And it's very similar to what Richmond did a couple of years ago. They didn't have, they had Rance, but then they also had a lot of Vlostone and these sort of guys roaming and taking different players at different times. Jack's saying, how do you think Ryder and Marshall can be used well in the team with King and Membry? It's a tough call. Marshall last week was phenomenal in that last quarter and pretty much for the whole game. And I expect him to be very good again on the weekend. I don't understand. It's a difficult one because I think, Ryder played really well with Marshall against the Dogs. It depends on the lineup. It depends on if we need to go taller. I think if a team's playing 2 rucks, then we probably go in with the 2 rucks just so they don't outnumber Marshall. But I can't answer that question, to be honest. It depends on... Ratton said it from the start. It depends on who we're playing. So clearly, so far, who we're playing has only really suited playing Marshall on his own. And then the Bulldogs was an exception. But so far, you don't want to tinker with a winning formula. So until something goes wrong and we really desperately need more tools, or we need Marshall to rest forward a bit more so he can relieve Max King, or maybe one week Max King gets a rest, because there's no doubt he'll need it. It's his first season. He won't be able to go a full season non-stop, although I'd love to see that. If he does need a rest, that's when Paddy Ryder probably comes in. But until then, for now, it'll be Marshall 1 out, and I expect him to do a job. He's been phenomenal. He's another midfielder for us. He's getting 18, 19 possessions a game. It's Grundy-esque, so by the end of the season, he's going to be a scary opposition for any ruckman. But I'll leave it there, guys. I'm got to sort out some dinner, and then very interested to watch the Cats and the Lions. Comment, let me know what your tips are. I'm thinking Saints by 35 points, 36 points. I'd love that, and we'll go 4-2, 3 in a row, and top 4 for another week. So that's the goal. The challenge is to be consistent when we're favourites. We've struggled being favourites. We nearly stuffed it up last week, but this week, it doesn't matter how we get the job done. We just need to get the job done and prove that away from Marvel, we can be competitive and our game plan can stand up on any ground in any weather. So that's what I'm most excited about, is that we're outside our comfort zone in more ways than one. And Fremantle have played on Metricon a few times already. They're comfortable in that system, in the hub that they're in, and they've had experience there more so than us. So I'm going to be very interested to see how we handle that. But until then, I'll leave it there, guys. I hope you're all doing really well in lockdown. Make sure to keep your distance, to wash your hands, sanitize, do all that stuff. You don't want to be sick and then watching the Saints on Saturday. So make sure you do all that stuff, and hopefully that means that we can get crowds and get to the footy again together and celebrate the Saints. Because another thing is that how shitty is it that the one time that we really are playing really exciting football across any team in the competition, and we're in the top 4 and playing good footy and winning games, that we can't go to Marvel and support the boys. That's typical Saints luck there, isn't it? It's awful, but we're going to do what we're going to do, and then hopefully we can get to the footy again. But until then, guys, I'll see you Saturday post-game, hopefully to talk about another one. Until then, take care and go you mighty Saints.